All right, everybody, buckle up. Because today, we're stepping onto the tarmac and into the tower. We're tackling air traffic management.
It's a career that's, well, not for the faint of heart, right? High stakes, lots of responsibility.
Absolutely, and we're doing more than just sightseeing today. Someone out there is prepping for a job interview in this exact field, and we're here to help them ace it.
And luckily, we've got the inside scoop. RoleCatcher to the rescue, as always. They've given us both their career guide A&D, their interview guide, so we're covering all the bases.
We're talking what the job really entails, day to day, plus how to talk about it like a pro when the pressure's on. And the best part, RoleCatcher provides 10 real interview questions.
The ones they actually ask. So consider this the ultimate practice run.
Exactly. We'll break down each question, what they're really getting at, because it's not always obvious. Plus, how to craft an answer that'll make you stand out. Ready to dive in? All right. Question 1 throws you right into the thick of it. How do you manage and prioritize the workload of air traffic controllers? Because let's be real, those folks have one of the most intense jobs out there.
Yeah, you try juggling dozens of planes in the air at the same time. It's not just about the controllers themselves, it's about the systems they use, the procedures in place.
The whole operation.
Exactly. They want to know you can handle the pressure, make tough calls, but also that you understand it's a team effort. Delegation, clear communication, that's all huge.
So it's not enough to just say, I'm a great multitasker.
No way. Give them specifics. Have a system in place, whether it's something formal you learned or just how you naturally prioritize. Maybe you use a to-do list, a whiteboard, whatever works.
And don't be afraid to name drop those project management buzzwords if you've got them.
Right. Agile, Scrum, Kanban, show them you speak the language.
Yeah, here's where it gets tricky, those follow-up questions. Because they're going to want to see if you can actually walk the walk.
Oh, absolutely. Be ready for a curveball. Like, they might ask about a time you had to make a tough call, prioritize one task over another, even if it ruffled some feathers.
Or what about when something unexpected throws everything off schedule?
Yes. A sudden storm, a runway closure. How do you adapt, reprioritize on the fly? Have a real-life example ready to go. Paint them a picture of how you handled it.
Love that. Because anyone can talk a big game, but showing you've actually been there, that's gold.
Exactly.
Okay, deep breaths, everyone. Let's move on to question 2. And this one's all about keeping a cool head when things get, well, a little turbulent. Quote, what is your experience with managing air traffic during inclement weather conditions? Because beautiful sunny days, those are easy.
It's the storms that separate the pros from the amateurs.
For sure. So, what are they really looking for here? What kind of experience should our listener highlight?
First off, safety is paramount, right? They need to know you're not going to compromise on that, no matter how tight the schedule gets.
Of course, that's a given. But beyond that, what makes for a strong answer here?
Think about the skills involved. You've got to be able to assess the situation quickly, make decisions with incomplete information sometimes.
Using radar, weather reports, all that fun stuff.
Right. And then communicate clearly under pressure to the controllers, to the pilots. Everyone needs to be on the same page.
It's like conducting an orchestra, but the instruments are airplanes, and the music is the sound of avoiding disaster.
Pretty much.
So when it comes to showcasing this experience, concrete examples are key, I imagine.
Absolutely. Don't just say you're good at handling stress. Tell them about a time you had to make a tough call during a blizzard, a hailstorm.
Or even just some crazy fog, whatever you've got.
Exactly. What did you do? How did you communicate? And what was the outcome? They want to hear those details.
Okay, listeners, you heard it here. Time to dust off those war stories, but keep it professional. Now, this next question is interesting because it's not about weather or technical glitches. It's about the human element. Question 3 asks, how do you handle conflicts between air traffic controllers? Because, let's face it, even the best of the best, they're still human.
Especially under that kind of pressure, things can get a little heated in the tower sometimes. And that's where good leadership comes in.
Absolutely. So how do you suggest our listener approach this one? What's the interviewer really trying to gauge here?
They want to know you can be a calming presence, right? That you can step in, de-escalate, find a solution that works for everyone.
So what's the magic formula? How do you recommend our listener structures their answer? Should they have a specific conflict resolution framework ready to go?
It's good to have some tools in your belt, yeah, whether it's active listening, finding common ground. But honestly, the most important thing is to come across as someone who can handle these situations with, grace under pressure.
Right, because you don't want to sound like you're reading from a textbook.
Exactly. Tell them about a time you successfully navigated a conflict. Maybe it was between two people on your team or even, a disagreement you had with a superior.
And how you resolved it, of course.
Yeah, focus on the outcome. Did you find a win-win? Did you learn something from the experience? Those are the kinds of details that stick with people.
Great advice. Okay, moving right along. Question 4 takes us back into the technical weeds a bit. Quote, how do you ensure communication between air traffic controllers and pilots is clear and concise? Because in this line of work, a miscommunication, that's not just an oopsie, right?
Definitely not. It could have serious consequences.
So how can our listener demonstrate that they're not just hoping for the best, but actively ensuring clear communication?
Well, think about it from a systems perspective. Are there standard operating procedures in place?
Checklists, protocols, all that.
Right. And it's not just about having them on paper. Are you regularly reviewing them with your team, running drills, making sure everyone's on the same page?
And staying up to date with any changes, I imagine.
Exactly. Because technology evolves, procedures get updated, you've got to be on top of it.
Speaking of technology, I'm curious, from your experience, have you seen any major advancements in communication systems that have really made a difference?
Oh, absolutely. Digital communication systems, for example, have been a game changer. They minimize the risk of errors from, mishearing or misinterpreting voice transmissions.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, what about those follow-up questions for this one? Because I'm sure they'll want to dig a little deeper, right?
Sure. They might ask about a time when, despite your best efforts, there was a communication breakdown. How did you handle it? What did you learn? Or they might even throw you a curveball, like how would you communicate during a complete system outage?
Ooh, good one. Okay, listeners, time to brush up on those emergency procedures.
Exactly.
Question 5 takes us into the future a little bit. It asks, how do you stay up to date with changes in air traffic management technology? Because this isn't a field where you can just learn it once and coast right.
Nope. Things are constantly evolving. New systems, new software. It's a lot to keep up with.
So how can our listener demonstrate that they're not just keeping up, but maybe even a little bit ahead of the curve?
Well, first off, show them you're genuinely interested in this stuff. Mention industry journals you read, conferences you've attended.
Or even online forums, professional development courses, anything like that.
Exactly. The more specific you can be, the better. And if you have the opportunity, maybe even talk about a specific technology that you're excited about, something that you think will really change the game in the near future.
Yeah, because that shows you're not just passively consuming information, you're actively thinking about the future of the field.
Precisely.
Now, before we get to question 6, I want to take a quick pause and remind everyone about a fantastic resource that can help you with all aspects of your job search. I'm talking about RoleCatcher, of course. Their AI-powered platform can do so much more than just provide you with sample interview questions.
It's true. RoleCatcher can actually help you tailor your answers to specific job descriptions. You can input the details of a job you're interested in, and their AI will analyze your responses, giving you feedback on how well they align with what the employer's looking for.
It's like having a personal career coach in your pocket. So if you're serious about landing that dream job in air traffic management, be sure to check out RoleCatcher. All right, let's get back to those interview questions, shall we? Question 6 asks, how do you manage a crisis situation, such as a security threat or a natural disaster?
The big one.
Yeah, this is where the rubber really meets the runway. So what are they looking for here? What kind of qualities are they trying to assess?
It's about leadership, plain and simple. Can you stay calm under pressure? Can you make tough decisions quickly? Can you inspire confidence in your team when everything's going haywire?
So how can our listener demonstrate those qualities in their answer?
Yeah.
Because again, just saying, I'm a natural leader, that's not going to cut it.
No, you need specifics. And ideally, a real-life example.
A war story.
Exactly. Tell them about a time you faced a crisis head-on. What was the situation? What steps did you take? What was the outcome? And this is important. Don't be afraid to talk about a time when things didn't go perfectly.
Oh, interesting. Why is that?
Because it shows you're self-aware, that you learn from your mistakes. Maybe you made a judgment call that, in hindsight, wasn't the best one. Talk about what you would have done differently.
That's really insightful. It's about owning your decisions, even the tough ones. Okay, listeners, time to reflect on those high-pressure moments and what you learned from them.
Absolutely.
Question 7 brings us back to that core responsibility, that driving force behind everything an air traffic manager does. Quote, how do you ensure the safety of all flights under your management? It's almost like a trick question, right? Because isn't that the whole point of the job?
It's the million-dollar question for
Right.
sure. But here's the thing. They're not looking for a simple answer.
Right, because there's no one magic button that
Hmm.
keeps the skies safe.
Exactly. It's about having layers of safety protocols, redundancy built into the system, and a team culture that prioritizes safety above all else.
So, when it comes to crafting an answer to this one, where do you even begin? It's such a big question.
Start with the fundamentals. Talk about your unwavering commitment to following FAA regulations, industry best practices.
The foundation, basically.
Right. And then go beyond that. Talk about how you foster that culture of safety within your team. Regular training, of course, but also open communication.
Making sure everyone feels comfortable speaking up if they see something that's not quite right.
Exactly. You want everyone to be your eyes and ears out there.
That makes sense. Now, when it comes to those follow-up questions, I'm guessing they might throw some real curveballs here.
Oh, absolutely. Be prepared to discuss specific safety incidents you've handled in the past. What happened? How did you react? What did you learn? Or they might even ask you about a time when you had to balance safety concerns with operational demands.
Because those two things aren't always perfectly aligned.
Exactly. Sometimes you have to make tough calls, and they want to know you're capable of doing that.
Great point. Okay, listeners, time to brush up on those safety protocols and be ready to think on your feet. Now, question 8 takes us back into the realm of people management, which, let's face it, is a huge part of this job. Quote, how do you manage the workload and schedules of air traffic controllers to ensure maximum efficiency? Because these folks work long hours under a lot of pressure.
Burnout is a real concern in this field.
Absolutely. So they're not just looking for someone who can create a spreadsheet and call it a day.
No, they want to see that you understand the human element, that you can balance those operational demands with the well-being of your team.
So what kind of strategies can our listener highlight to show they've got what it takes?
Well, think about how you assess workload. Do you have a system for distributing tasks fairly? Do you take into account people's experience levels, their strengths and weaknesses?
Yeah, because you don't want to overload someone who's still learning the ropes.
Exactly. And then there's the scheduling aspect. Can you create a schedule that meets the needs of the operation while also accommodating people's personal lives as much as possible?
Because everyone needs a break now and then.
Absolutely. So think about any flexible scheduling arrangements you've implemented in the past. Or maybe you have a system for approving time off requests that's fair and transparent.
Great points. Now, what about those curveballs, those follow-up questions that might really put our listeners' skills to the test?
Oh, they could get really specific here. Imagine being asked about how you'd handle a staffing shortage during the busiest travel season of the year.
Or what about a major weather event that causes massive flight diversions?
Exactly. Those are the kinds of scenarios that really test your ability to think on your feet and find creative solutions.
It's about being adaptable, resourceful, and maybe having a backup plan. Or 3.
Always have a backup plan.
Solid advice. Okay, question 9 takes us into the realm of professional development, which is something that should be important in any field, but especially one as dynamic as air traffic management. The question is, how do you ensure the training and development of air traffic controllers under your management? Because it's not just about what they know today.
It's about what they'll need to know tomorrow.
Exactly. So how can our listener demonstrate that they're invested in the growth of their team?
Well, first and foremost, talk about the opportunities you provide for professional development. Do you encourage your team to attend industry conferences, workshops? Do you provide access to online training programs?
Or even just carve out time for them to shadow more experienced controllers, learn new skills on the job.
All of that is great. And if you've developed any training programs yourself, definitely mention that. It shows initiative.
It shows you're not just going through the motions. You're actively trying to make your team the best it can be.
Exactly. Now, those follow-up questions, they might ask you about a time when you helped a controller develop a new skill, or maybe even help them move into a more senior role.
It's about being a mentor, a guide, someone who's invested in the success of their team.
Precisely.
Okay, we've reached the final question of our air traffic management interview marathon. Question 10. How do you compare the performance of your team with other air traffic control providers? Now, this one's interesting. It's a little more big picture than the others.
It's strategic. They want to know you're not just focused on your own little corner of the
You're
airspace.
thinking about the industry as a whole.
Exactly. Are you benchmarking against the best? Are you identifying areas where your team could improve?
So how should our listener approach this one? What kind of information should they be prepared to share?
Well, they need to have some concrete metrics in mind, things like on-time performance, safety records, even controller feedback, and morale. How do those things stack up against industry averages? And more importantly, what are you doing with that information?
Right, because it's not just about collecting data, it's about using it to improve.
Exactly. Have you implemented any initiatives based on your comparisons? Have you identified best practices from other providers and brought them into your own operations?
It's about being open to new ideas, to constantly striving for excellence. Well, there you have it, folks. 10 tough interview questions dissected and demystified. We covered a lot of ground
I
today.
did. But hopefully our listener feels more prepared than ever to walk into that interview and absolutely crush it.
That's what we like to hear. And don't forget, you've got RoleCatcher in your corner. Their career guide and interview guide are invaluable resources for anyone serious about a career in air traffic management.
And their AI-powered platform can provide personalized feedback, practice analysis, and so much more. It's like having a secret weapon.
Absolutely. So head over to RoleCatcher and start exploring. You might just find that this high-flying career is well within your reach. Until next time, happy landings, everyone.